We are in my studio space, my sewing studio. I make unisex clothing all out of vintage textiles like quilts and tablecloths and all things that people have like donated or thrown away and don't find use for anymore. And I make them into really whimsical, fun clothes that just keep all these beautiful old textiles in rotation. A lot of quilts, which will probably become coats and jackets, which are usually like my favorite things to find because a lot of the time they're all handmade by lovely grandmas who spend hours and hours making these beautiful things that people don't really use that much anymore. They just sit on shelves, and I think it's a lot cooler if people get to wear them and show all that beautiful handiwork. So this is a custom coat that I'm making for a friend, and it's a really, really cool quilt. It's called a Kantha quilt, and he spent many hours scouring eBay looking for the perfect one because this style of quilt comes in like a million different colors and styles and prints and everything. But yeah, so it was just a big like 5x7 quilt that you could just throw on your bed. But what was really fun about this one is playing around with the different colors and patterns and like trying to figure out how best they can live in harmony. What I love about quilts is usually they're already finished on the edges and stuff, so I love to use corners for like a really clean finish, and I thought this row of flowers was so fun, and the buttons will go along this. And then just balancing it out with this much larger print, and the back is really fun. This is like just a middle section of the quilt, but I think it complements, you know, the back and the shape of the coat so beautifully. I started sewing when my grandmother got me a sewing machine. I was probably around 10, and she taught me how to use it. And at the time, I didn't really stick with it. I did small projects. But then I went to college for graphic design and art history, so I got to experiment and play around with a lot of different mediums. And the one thing that I always came back to was sewing. These are the two machines that I have. They're both, you know, like domestic home sewing machines. Serger is everyone's best friend. Great shears and snips. Can't live without snips. My kind of color-coded box of buttons, which is starting to overflow. But I love to just get like random jars and boxes of buttons at thrift stores. This is actually a really cute box of buttons that my dad went to a flea market and picked up for me, and I haven't even really sorted through them, but there's some really funky little ones in here. Oh, I can show you. This is a little dusty, but this is a little tooth jar that I found at a thrift store. It was supposed to be a sugar bowl, which I just thought was hilarious and charming, but I keep my brand tags in here. They're like easy to reach, and I stamp these myself just on random scraps of fabric with a stamp that a friend made for me, which feels really special that every part of the process is handmade. I was really excited to play with the proportions of a traditional suit. I knew I wanted something cropped because I like to have boxy, waist-defining clothes, and the double-breasted blazer is just a look that I've always loved. It feels very classic and timeless in a bit of a fun, not so boring way. And the pants are based on my favorite pair of jeans, which are really high-waisted and then really wide-legged, and I feel super comfortable in them, but also effortlessly cool, I think. And the print was probably the hardest part because there are just so many fabrics to choose from. I knew I wanted black and white because that's what I often gravitate towards in my own wardrobe. I picked a lining that has vintage wine labels, which I thought was really charming and fun and right up my alley. And it was a really fun process.